speaking with Steven Van Neste regarding ethics and the modern guru, especially regarding the recent issue of the People's Temple. We feel that it's important that, as editor in chief, he makes some statements and comments referencing the issue, and we're very honored to speak with Mr. Van Neste. One of the things that are asked regarding the issue is what inspired you to do the issue on the People's Temple?
It's because it's the ultimate cult in many people's minds. Because when you think of a cult, it was the first big cult that was out there, but also because it was a quite different than what people have in mind when they think of a cult. Because rather than being something that's out there in terms of beliefs, it was something that was much more focused on a social activity rather than any weird form of esoteric type of beliefs. Also, when you think of People's Temple, obviously, it culminated in Jonestown and culminated in a mass suicide massacre, but it did not just happen like that. Uh, the suicides were in 1978, whereas the formation of the People's Temple was in 1955. So it's not something that happened overnight. So it's not something where you can say okay, here's this crazy thing, don't join it. Let's stay away from this. No, it's something that took over 20 years to come to a conclusion, and that's why it's so important because the things that can influence us towards certain finalities in our life are never completely there in the beginning when we think about them or when we join them. So it's not something that's obvious, and that's why People's Temple is so important because people didn't think I'm joining these weirdly esoteric suicidal cults. So it was not like a cult where people join it because they think they're gonna be taken off to some other great different type of life. Rather, who joined the People's Temple joined it because they wanted a change in this material life here. So they were not seeking something esoteric, they were seeking a change in our exoteric life as it is here. And that's why I find it so interesting.
Would you prefer maybe to say that the deaths in Guyana was more not of a revolutionary suicide, but of a murder? Because I know that you listened to the last tape of Jim Jones, and it didn't seem like a voluntary situation at all. What do you feel? I, I personally feel it was a murder than suicide.
Um, to begin, it will depend on how we define murder, obviously, and you know, and how we define suicide for that matter. But uh, yeah, definitely, the people were definitely coerced. So I don't think there were many people who willingly just went to their death, because when you listen to the death tape, people constantly were arguing with Jim Jones, like, is this really what we should do? So it is obvious listening to the death tape that people did not want to die. Uh, um, and so people thought that maybe there was another way. And but so the question then remains is, why did they still do it? And how did Jim Jones manage to coerce them into a, what he calls revolutionary suicide? And as Jim Jones said, and as is written in the magazine, he liked to coerce people by saying that he had done good things for everybody and he never lied to anybody. So how could this suicide not be necessary? So he definitely to me it seems that he coerced people by playing on this idea of necessity. But what he definitely was, to my mind, was dishonest is why would their suicide be a necessity? He said that you cannot go back to America. You have given, and a lot of it is centered on people cannot go back, as and those are his words, basically on the death tape, because they had given everything to him. So in a way, he is very in his own words in the death tape, he is responsible for their deaths because he had asked them to sacrifice everything for them. So from the get go, he really did want people to sacrifice their lives for them. So whether even if those people think that yes, we should kill ourselves because there's nothing else left for us, because those people might have been scared after what happened at the landing airstrip when they heard that news that they had, that they were partially responsible for the supposed murder of a congressman. People might have gotten scared. But what really did it is Jim Jones calmly mentioning that basically they had pledged their lives to he. So I would say ethically, yes, he definitely is guilty of murder. And, this, even if the people chose to kill themselves, it was not a suicide because they had personal issues. Because a real suicide is something due to personal issues. Whereas these people did not have personal issues where they thought, I cannot go on living, I have to kill myself. They were coerced. So it was not suicide in any regular sense of the word. And, in almost every way you look at it, it is a mass murder.
Um, as as we interviewed people who survived this, what were some of the highlights that you would like to mention of the interviews and the people that we were able to know that helped with this issue and are the heart of this issue? What are some highlights you would like to mention in closing on the interviews and having to edit this entire issue?
Um, One thing I liked very much was, and that inspired me a lot to write in my own program and error essay, was what was said by David Parker Wise. And it's not an exact quote, I think, or it might be, but he said that we must realize both the cult outside and the cult we are in already. And words that were mentioned by Laura Cole were very much the same also. And both of them, incidentally, mentioned, how it was a part of the times in which the People's Temple grew. So what David Parker said, we have to realize the cult inside is that the society we live in is always a cult structure, because even if it's not destructive, or even if it's not malicious, we live in a society and where everything is organized and we have to believe in the society. And the problem with this is that a lot of times the injustices that happen in this society also tend to be whitewashed as just being parts of society. So we grow up thinking a lot of times that social injustices are just part of the program. And that is one of the reasons why People's Temple managed to gained such prominence because in the as I was written in the magazine, 1955, the time in which the People's Temple began, was also the same year in which Rosa Parks was arrested for sitting in a white person's seat. And that is 1955, incidentally, is 10 years after the Second World War. So in 19 in the 40s, we went to fight Nazi Germany because we believe that their values are wrong and they discriminate against people, and that's wrong. 10 years after the end of that war, a black woman here in our own country is arrested because she sits in a white person's seat. So this is the climate in which the People's Temple began. And this is a climate that's still with us because there's still a lot of injustices that are with us, even though we live in a supposed free society. And that is why the People's Temple is so important uh, to keep our minds on, because there will always be social injustices, and there will always be people who fight for it, and it's good that we fight for a just society. But it also means that there's always a chance that will be hijacked, that our minds, will be hijacked in fighting for a free society, but our minds will be hijacked by programs of people such as Jim Jones who have ulterior motives, or as it so often happens in uh, Western political leaders at the moment who I shan't name, or even in gurus in the East, who all say they fight for social justice, but it all comes with their own program for mind control, and it all comes with their own habits. So people have to be aware of that everywhere people are fighting to get our mind under their control. So it's not just that people want that these cultish influences, we could say in a broader term, want our freedom, but rather they want us to be indoctrinated inside their habitual system.
Very true. And thank you for those insights, Stephen. Is there anything you would like to add before we close this interview? Any insights on terms of changes that you've made in the magazine or what you're looking for in the future?
Um, no, just that the next issue probably will go more into the sphere of political influence, because I really like something that has been done by somebody. We once talked to Peter Daly, who talked about once about situations in North Korea where defectors who come over from North Korea to South Korea, for instance, how their vocabulary is completely different, and that there's certain words in Korean they don't know because in North Korean vernacular, those words are not allowed. So it it comes down to the age-old problem of philosophy, where so many problems are due because certain systems do not allow us access to parts of language. So that's something to look out for. Uh, the other thing is that we definitely want to focus more on the cult that is here already. So it's very interesting to keep on working on the idea of how cultish structures are always with us. Now, this can be for good or can be for, well, not for good, but it can be neutral and it can be for bad. But everywhere, if you look at mass media, if you look at commercials for whatever product a person desires, these products, these companies, they want you to buy into them. So everywhere there is influence coming to us. So whether or not there is active brainwashing or not, there always is someone or something that is trying to get our attention at all cost, because that is how society works, and that there's always somebody who wants us to believe their point. And so, what we have to do and what we have to be aware of is just to try and slow down our thinking a little bit, so that we can just see through things and learn to understand where influences lie, and learn to see if we really need something or not, or whether or not we actually really are thinking or not. Because it's easy to imagine that we are thinking. And this is especially true when it comes to politics, as things are at the moment. Do we really agree with what is being said? Do we really think that those thoughts that are portrayed by a candidate or not, are those really our thoughts? Have we actually really thought about these issues? Or is it just that the issue is presented to us and we just say yes as an emotional Pavlovian reaction?
Thank you. Before we log off, I also want to give a special thanks to Rebecca Moore and Fielding McGee, and Catherine Barber, and of course Dr. Benjamin Zablocki for his contributions. And we will be signing off. Thank you, Stephen.